Hey, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory that's due to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who all learned this truth from the well. Peace and salutations to the 144,000, the rest of the 1/3, the large multitude, until I say shalom. Coming to you back with another lesson through the Spirit. And I'm entitled this one, Esau's plan of trying to be like the Most High will fail. And who is Esau? Esau, Edom, spoken about in the scriptures, that's going into which today would be known as a white man, which he put that name on himself because that word white, that goes into being pure, because one of the ways that he has deceived the whole world, he made the whole world to believe that he's the Most High and that he's also, the only begotten Son, and that he's the Israelites, hiding from his true nationality, the true ethnicity, which is the Edomites, which are the descendants of Esau, which is the twin brother of Jacob. Because during the time of Jacob, 2 blessings were given out, but Esau had the birthright, to eat the eternal kingdom, but he sold it. He sold it for a morsel of meat. He sold it for pottage to Jacob. But ultimately it was already set up like that in the spirit, because usually the inheritance goes to the oldest, which Esau was the oldest and Jacob was the younger. But, Yahweh Shema Shai does whatever he wants. So he set it up in the spirit for Jacob to supplant, Esau, Edom, for that birthright. That's ultimately why Jacob and the descendants, which are the 12 tribes of Israel, that comprise of the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, the nation of Israel is the one who is going to have the eternal kingdom, starting with Yahweh Shai and the 144,000, and the rest of the 1/3. And eventually the whole nation of Israel will be in the kingdom, but 2/3 of Jake will not receive the kingdom on this side, because right now 2/3 are prophesied to be destroyed by the way of fire for their rebelliousness, their wickedness, for refusing to turn back and repent to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. So they're going to have to be brought back through the loins of the elect. They're going to have to be the children of the elect. It may be from the 144,000 or from the large multitude of believers, friends, helps of the prophets. And that's what Esau, Edom, is trying to do with this whole transhumanism, transforming humans into androids, putting robotic parts, trying to be like the Most High through these left-handed miracles, putting brain implants in people who lost their vision, lost their eyesight, or maybe they were paralyzed, from the neck on down. And now here comes, the devil, Esau, Edom, the white man, with a solution through his left-hand miracles. And yeah, ultimately they work, but their left-handed miracles, they weren't from Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, but Yahweh Bashem Yahushai did give him the technology to be able to do those left-handed miracles to puff him up. Because now, in his mindset, he thinks that he could be like the Most High. That's why he's trying to have everybody, my micros, he hipped up. He's trying to have surveillance around the whole world to this Plantineer, have eyes on everybody, but not just surveillance, also having access to the thoughts, whatever thoughts you may have 24/7. He's trying to be like the Most High. He's trying to be omnipresent, but we know that he's not going to get to that, because when he's about to fill his belly that's when Yahweh Bashim Yahushua is going to throw that monkey wrench in his devil's plans, because he's going to let him, establish his system, his new world global system, up to the point where he thinks that he's won. But that's when Yahweh Shai is going to return and bring this devil down, because Esau Edom's mind has blinded him, deceived him to the point that he thinks he's going to win. He thinks he's going to get away from slavery, but we know that that's not going to happen. This is Obadiah chapter 1 and verse 3. The pride of thine heart hath deceived thee, thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high, that said in his heart, who shall bring me down? Or who shall bring me down to the ground? So this is Esau's mentality. His mindset is, now that he has all this power, all this technology, through the left hand, AI, his mindset is, I can never be brought down, because look at the technology, look at my power, look at my military might. But what he fails to realize is that it was given unto him by Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. It wasn't his own doing of receiving all these left-handed blessings. The power of the earth, the military might, missiles, the drones, helicopters. No, ultimately all this was given unto him by Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. So Yahweh Bashim Yahushua put that stumbling block on his devil for him to deceive him, because who dwelleth in the clefts of the rock? Who originates from that area over there in Jordan? The Petra, the mountains. And who went into, that bottomless pit, which is our Europe, the Caucasus Mountains for 1,000 years? Is the so-called white people, the white man, the white nation, which is really Esau Edom, because they're trying to hide away from the true ethnicity, because they know the judgment that's going to come to Esau Edom. They're going to be put in chains, be put in shackles, serve 1,000 long year period of hardcore slavery under the nation of Israel. And then they're going to be burned up. That's going to be the end of Esau Edom. But in his mindset, he thinks that he's going to win. He's going to get away, that he's going to win. But no, we know ultimately Yahweh Bashim Yahushua is going to bring this devil down. Verse 4. Though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, and though thou set thy nest among the stars, thence will I bring thee down, said the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. So what's the mascot, the national mascot or logo of all these different Edomite nations that have ruled? It's been the eagle. That's how it's talking about the so-called white man, which is really Esau Edom. And it says, though thou set thy nest among the stars, thence will I bring thee down. That's going into when his devil put up his satellites, up in the sky. And also when he so-called made it to the moon, he landed on the moon, and I think it was 1969. He had Neil Armstrong, which is all a hoax. This devil has never left the earth past the Van Allen belt, because he can't. Yahweh Bashim Yahushua is not going to let this devil, try to navigate and travel the stars in the galaxy. No, that's ultimately for the nation of Israel. That's not for this devil. And right around that time period when this devil, Esau Edom, so-called made it to the moon, he established, or he put his moon base, he put the flag down, which we know that's all a hoax, that was made in a movie studio. That's the same time when the power of this devil started collapsing, right around the late 1960s, 70s, 80s, up until now. Because right around that time period, 1969, the late 1960s, that's when our elder, high priest Abba Bibbins, which we believe to be Elijah the prophet, which was prophesied to be sent back, in the last days, came around, when he wasn't just going into the Old Testament, he started going into the New Testament and speaking about the importance of Yahweh Shai, the importance of his death, burial, and resurrection. That's around the time that this devil finally started, his system finally started collapsing. This is 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 3. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. And that falling away came around the time of 70 AD, which Yahushua prophesied about. But pretty much he told, hey, that's going to be the great falling away. You're going to go into the wilderness, go into the land of Ham, which is the land of West Africa, ultimately for the rebellioususness of Jake, for refusing to repent to Yahweh Shemiah Shai. A lot of Jake got put to death, during the siege of 70 AD. But the ones that took heed from Yahushai's message, to flee to the wilderness, they got away. But ultimately, we were still, the southern kingdom, because the northern kingdom was already over here in the Americas, but the southern kingdom, we were all prophesied to go into captivity. And that's the time around when Esau, Edom, came back into power, when that 1,000 period year was up. That's when the southern kingdom got brought into the Americas through the transatlantic trade, the slave trade, and those ships packed like sardines. And who did that was the so-called white man, which is Esau, Edom. Verse 4, who opposeth and exalted himself above all that is called the Most High, or that is worshipped, so that he as the Most High sitteth in the temple of the Most High, shewing himself that he is God. And who's doing that right now? Which that's that story, those made up lies, they're collapsing. People aren't starting to believe it no more because it's not connecting, it's not making sense. Painting himself to be the Most High, painting himself to be the Israelites. But now you got Putin, opening up the Russian icons, the vaults, showing the true color, the true images of Yahweh Shemiah Shai, the true images of the Israelites. And it's not clicking what this the propaganda from this devil that he's pushed out throughout the earth. People are starting to wake up to the fact, oh shit, the Most High is a so-called black man. The only begotten son is a so-called black man. The Israelites are the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. People are starting to wake up to the fact that this devil is full of shit, that he's been lying this whole time to make himself out to be the Most High. We know that it's a bunch of bullshit. Verse 5, remember ye not that when I was with you, I told you these things. Verse 6, and now you know that withhold that he might be revealed in his time. And he's being revealed right now. Starting with our elder high priest Abba Bivens, right from that time period up until this point. Now we've been calling this devil out, telling him that he's going to go into slavery, telling him that he's going to go into captivity, and telling him what his end is, what his judgment, which is going to be utter destruction, extinction. Because back then, people didn't know who Esau Edom was, and that he's really the white man, and what his plans was of world domination, having everybody subject under him in a totalitarian, dictatorship. Verse 7, for the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Only he who now letteth will let until he be taken out the way. Verse 8, and then shall the wicked be revealed, and the Lord shall consume it with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. And the wicked have been revealed in these last days. Because now you got the dry bones coming back together with the breath put in them, telling not just our people, the nation of Israel, but also the whole entire earth who the white man really is, which is Esau Edom, and what his plans are, and how they're going to fail miserably, because ultimately Yahweh Shai Shai has another plan, which is the deliverance of the elect, the destruction of America, and the establishing of the kingdom of heaven, which is going to be here on the planet Earth. And the prophets are out there on the highways and byways telling this devil straight to his face, the mouthpiece of Yahweh Shai, telling this devil that he's going to go into slavery, standing in boldness. And also, when Yahweh Shai returns, that's when we know that it's the end of this devil ruling upon the planet Earth, that he's done, that he's finished, and it's going to be brought down. Yeah, the wicked elite, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, yeah, they may hide in their bunkers for a set period amount of time, but eventually the elect are going to come down from the chariots of salvation and pull this devil, from the clefts of the rock, which are the bunkers. Verse 9, even him whose coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders, and who's the physical counterpart of the spiritual demon Satan, is the white man, Esau Edom, constantly lying through his pharmakia, his so-called medicine, his pills, his medications, his drugs. He pollutes the food, GMO foods. He pushes out all these different propagandas, indoctrination through the school system, Darwinism, that fake ass evolution, that the earth is billions of years old, that he's been to so-called outer space and explored all these different galaxies with his, Hubble telescope. We know that that's all bullshit, that he's lying, that it is all, lies and deceit from Esau, even the white man, because he's trying to paint himself to be the Most High, that he really has all this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, but we know that he doesn't. We know that he's a liar, he's a thief, he's a robber, he's a murderer. This is 2 Corinthians chapter 11 and verse 14. And no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. And who is Satan? The physical counterpart of the spiritual demon Satan is the white man, Esau Edom. He's transformed into being this righteous. That's why he's so-called white, because he's so-called pure. But we know that that's a lot of bullshit. He's full of wickedness. He constantly plans and conjures up new ways to take out the nation of Israel and to slowly put them to death, through the food, the water, the media. You got black culture. He sets up all these different entertainers, rappers, celebrities to lead our people astray. And a lot of Jake falls for that shit. He sets up these colleges, these universities for Jake to go in and get indoctrinated into that Greek and Roman lifestyle, when our people think that he's doing them a favor, but ultimately he's doing them a disservice. He's leading them astray from Yahweh Shai. And a lot of our people and the whole world, they've been made to believe that the so-called white man is the Most High and his only begotten Son through his sword, which is a big part of the sword is his propaganda, his lies, the media, these different Christian churches, these Roman Catholic churches. This is 1 Maccabees chapter 3 and verse 47. Then they fasted that day and put on sackcloth and cast ashes upon their heads and rent their clothes. Verse 48, and laid open the book of the law, wherein the heathen hath sought to paint the likeness of their images. These damn heathen, these Edomites, Esau, Edom, the white people, the Greeks, try to make themselves into the images of the Israelites and the Most High. They've been always trying to do that, and during this last leg of the Roman Empire, the revived Roman Empire, America, Babylon the Great, they have achieved that, through painting themselves to be the Most High and the only begotten Son, deceiving the whole nation into thinking they're God and they're the chosen people, especially those those gutter rats over there in the land of Israel, those small hats, the J word, this whole time they make to believe the whole world that they're the chosen people, but now their actions are saying otherwise. Prophecy is saying otherwise, because when a true nation of Israel, the Israelites, will be, back in the land, then there will be no more wars. There will be peace. But right now is the complete opposite of peace, is war. You got Iran bombing Israel. You got Russia and Ukraine. You got China trying to invade Taiwan. You got the United States being involved with the Israel and Iran war. This is all going to lead to the Third World War. But yet, they claim to be the real people of the Lord, the real people of the Most High, but their actions say otherwise. Prophecy says otherwise. This is why prophecy is undefeated. This is Job chapter 9 and verse 24. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covereth the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he? So the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. And who are the wicked? Who are their third classification of nation upon the planet Earth? You got the sons of God, which is the nation of Israel, the Israelites, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Then you got the sons of man, which are the heathen, the so-called Indians, the Elamites, the so-called Chinese, the Moabites, the so-called Japanese, the Ammonites, the so-called Arabs, which are the Ishmaelites, the so-called Africans, which are the Hamites. And then you got the third classification, the sons of the wicked, the sons of Satan, which are the so-called white people, which are really the Edomites, which are the descendant of Esau, Edom. Because Esau, Edom, he was given that temporary blessing through Isaac, because Jacob got that eternal blessing, which is the kingdom of heaven, that everlasting life. But this devil, he got that temporary blessing, that second place, that third place blessing, which was only temporary. And that's why he has complete control of the entire earth. He's trying to be like the Most High. He's trying to get the whole world micro-see him. He's trying to do away with a large amount of people so he could, control with the fewer amount of people left upon the planet Earth. He's trying to have complete rulership of the entire earth, but we know that that's not going to happen to the point where he's going to be like the Most High, because right now he does have control of the world. He has control of the resources, the people, the economy, the food, the water, what he sprays on the skies. But he's trying to get to that point where he's trying to be like the Most High. He's trying to be immortal. That's why he's pushing so hard for that transhumanism. But we know that he's not going to achieve that. Yahweh Shema Shah is going to let him establish his new system, up to a point. But then Yahweh Shema Shah is going to throw that monkey wrench in him, in his plans. This is Psalms chapter 49 and verse 11. Their inward thought is that their houses shall continue forever, and that their dwelling places to all generations. They call their lands after their own names. And this is the inward thought of the white man, Esau, Edom. That they're going to continue to rule forever. That they're going to escape captivity. They're going to escape slavery from Yahweh Shema Shai. That they're never going to be brought down. But ultimately, that's Yahweh Shema Shai letting this devil get puffed up to the point that he thinks he won. I'm going to get that real quick in Romans. This is Romans chapter 9 and verse 17. For the scripture said unto Pharaoh, even for this same purpose have I raised thee up, that I might show my power in thee, and that my name might be declared through all the earth. So ultimately, when this devil gets to the point where, he thinks he's won, that, he's like the Most High, that's when Yahweh Shema Shai is going to bring him down to exalt the Lord's name more. to really exalt his name throughout the earth so people could really know who Yahweh Shema Shai is and what his power really stands for. Because right now, the whole world really doesn't know, the true power of the Heavenly Father and the only begotten Son. Only the hopeful elect of us are the hopeful elect. We know the power of Yahweh Shema Shai and what he really stands for and his true nature. But 2/3 Jake don't know his power. These heathens don't know the power of Yahweh Shema Shai. They think that this devil, the white man, has put himself in that rulership position, that he's been able to achieve everything by himself. But no, ultimately Yahweh Shema Shai set him up, but also he's going to bring him down to show his power, to show that nobody surpasses or passes whatever set amount of time that was given unto them to rule upon the planet Earth. And it says they call their lands after their own names. And who has gone out throughout the earth and named all these different countries and continents after their own names is the white man. America, Amargo, Vespucci. You got Africa, and all these different lands that Esau, Edom has named after himself. And also us, that they have our slave names. These are our, Edomite last names, Edomite first names that was given unto us by this devil, because we're captives under Esau, Edom. This is Job chapter 14 and verse 5. Seeing his days are determined, the number of his months are with thee. Thou hast appointed his bounds that he could not pass. So this devil's days are determined. We know that his time is short. That's why he's coming down with that great wrath. He's scrambling to get his NWO up and running. He's trying to get everybody micro C hipped up. He's trying to do away with Jake, Jacob's trouble. You got him trying to round up the northern kingdom and then eventually the southern kingdom. That's his devil scrambling up because he knows that he has a short time. So he has to come down with that great wrath because he sees that Yahweh Shai is at the door. Because these devils, they know the prophecies. They watch the prophets, the true prophets of Yahweh Shema Shai. They have the 100% truth. So they know that they don't have long. But yet, in their mindset, they think that, if they do get their NWO system up and running, then, they're going to have eternity to rule. But no, ultimately, Yahweh Shema Shai, once he's about to fill his belly, that's when Yahweh Shema Shai is going to rain that great wrath on him. He's going to shoot those missiles to America and the land of Israel. And he's going to bring this devil down. Yahweh Shai is coming to take the crowns of all these different kings. This is 2nd Ezra chapter 6 and verse 9. For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. So Esau is the end of the world, which is, it's not going to be the world blowing up into a million pieces. No, that's going into the end of the age. No, we're at the end of this current age, which is being ruled by Esau, Edom, the white man. And him trying to be like the Most High is going to fail miserably. Him trying to be like the Most High is not going to work according to what he's planning, because Yahweh Shema Shai's will is going to be done. And Yahweh Shema Shai's will is to bring this devil down, to deliver his elect from the upcoming destruction that's going to take place here in America, where the 1/3 are going to be delivered by the way of the chariots, starting with the 144,000 and the rest of the 1/3. But also that great destruction is going to take place where the 2/3 of the nation of Israel, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, and these heathens are going to partake in. They're going to partake in that second death for trusting in this devil, for then bow down to this devil, for taking a micro C hip, for trusting in Egypt rather than trusting in Yahweh Shema Shai, the nation of Israel. And at that time period, once the elect get beamed up, Lord willing, we be a part of that number into the chariots and get changed into those new bodies, where we're going to have the law, statutes, commandments written in our inward parts, never to sin ever again, which is going to lead to immortality. The nation of Israel are the ones who are going to have eternity to rule upon the planet Earth, starting when Yahweh shined 144,000. Not this damn white man, this pale red devil that thinks he's going to win and get away with his NWO plan and he's going to enslave the whole world. No, that's going to fail miserably. But ultimately, Yahweh Shema Shai is going to let him get puffed up to the point where he thinks that he's won. And then that's when he's going to bring him down. But that's pretty much the point. I pray this is edifying to the elect. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who all learned this truth from the well. Peace and salutations to the 144,000, the rest of the 1/3, the large multitude, until I say shalom.